The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is... This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Robert Kiyosaki, the entrepreneur, investor, motivational speaker, financial expert, and author of the globally renowned bestseller, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the #1 personal finance book of all time. Robert, you have dedicated your life to challenging the way tens of millions of people around the world think about money and investing. You have been outspoken in your belief that our education system is failing us and that much of what people believe has been designed to keep them ignorant and poor. For the past 12 months, you have warned us about the prospect of an economic crash that will be greater than anything we've ever known before, one that will leave people living in poverty. You believe that the Democrats are destroying America, the dollar is finished, and the middle classes are the ones who will suffer most in 2023. You expect to see stock, bond, and real estate markets crash and believe those who can should invest in gold, silver, and Bitcoin. Or as you would say, Robert, if you can print it, I don't want it. Robert, it's always a pleasure. Welcome back to London Real.
Well, thank you, Brian. If I could give a shout out to you, is that, well, first of all, this is my England shirt.
Woo!
Here.
Love it.
And I was there for the Rugby World Cup at Twickenham in 2015. But I want to just say that Brian Rose is a real human being. He and I come from the same bolt of cloth. I think we were talking before we went on air. We were born for this time. It is a time for transformation. If you understand, it's different between education and transformation. And one of the things I'm upset about, as you know, I've always said, why doesn't our schools teach us about money? And we're talking about your last prime minister, the shortest prime minister in history. I mean, and I thought about her because this is one of my books here, Who Stole My Pensions? And when she tried to, I don't know what the heck she did, but she wasn't there long enough to even read my book. But our money system is so screwed up, and we still don't teach anything about money. I can't believe it. And you and I have been saying this for how many years now? You've been to Arizona, I've been to London with you. But this, Brian, we better start transforming, not just getting educated.
Yeah, I agree. And this does feel like our time. I mean, when everything got crazy in 2020, it was probably one of the best years we've ever had here because, Robert, that didn't faze us at all. We didn't blink an eye. I didn't miss a day of work. We were in here broadcasting, putting out the truth, going head to head against these trillion-dollar tech companies, not letting them censor us, putting out these messages. And, Robert, when I tell my students in my academy, when I quote your lines into them, when I say, poor people work for money, and rich people make money work for them. When I talk about how your story, when you raised your hand and said, when are you going to teach us about money in the education system? And they said, no. Everybody they get it. They know you're right. And this is the time, like you said, to transform. People have to completely rethink what they thought they knew about money. And that's why it's so great to have people like you, Robert. And everyone's looking to people like you in these markets because you've been talking about this for decades.
And Brian, this is 2023. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is still #1 after 25 years. And I flunked out of school because I can't write. Can you imagine that? And all I do is write about. So I kept asking the question. I said, why don't they teach us about money? What are they teaching us today? About wokeism and Black Lives Matter and gender bending. What about money? I just can't believe our education system has gone so corrupt And today, the number one debt for most young people are student loans. And they come out of school and they really can't even find a job that pays them that much. I mean, it makes ROI, return on investment, a college education doesn't make sense. There's no ROI on it. So when you think about that, it's our school system that's criminal too.
Yeah, you're always on the front lines, really pointing that out. I know making a lot of teachers unions uncomfortable, but I'm glad you do. And you sent me that message earlier, and I saw you. I mean, #1 ranked after 25 years as a book with you just asking some simple questions. You know, I tell the story when I went and saw you in Phoenix about 5 or 6 years ago, and we sat down for that epic interview. Robert, this probably been watched now 40, 50 million times. I've seen it translated in 12, 13 different languages. There's one, I told you one, that we're both speaking Russian in that interview. And that was epic. But I reread Rich Dad Poor Dad on the flight out to Phoenix. And man, I mean, by 15 pages in, there's just something about it that feels life transforming, as if what you're saying is, it's almost biblical, Robert, because it's the human DNA. You're explaining how we create value and how we perceive value. And it's never been taught to us before. And you do it through this, allegory of these two dads. It's a beautiful piece of work and still super relevant. And they're still not teaching about money. So I guess we're going to have to, right?
Well, I think I watch you doing your running and all this stuff. It inspires me because I'm lazy as heck. But you and I are about transformation. There's a difference between a rich person and a poor person. Giving them money is not going to do it. I can give a poor person all the money in the world, and they'll still be poor. You give a crook all the money in the world, they'll still be a crook. And today we have the Biden crime family in place here. I mean, I can't believe these guys. And they got top secret documents lying all over the place. Americans are shooting everybody all over the place. I'm watching where you and I are watching the world come apart. And if we don't go through transformation, no more just go to school and get a job. We've got to go beyond that, Brian. And so I think that's what you and I, as now the senior citizens of the Zoom world, that's what we're pushing for. You cannot just give somebody money or send them to school. They've got to transform.
Well, Robert, you famously said the difference between a rich person and a poor person is their relationship with fear. And maybe that has something to do with that transformation, because if you're not willing to transform, which means you have to go into a fear, if you really want to transform, is that what that comes down to? Is it about going into those fears and pushing yourself to become someone new?
Well, it kind of goes back to education and transformation. My benefit was I didn't go to a traditional school. I got nominations to Naval Academy and Merchant Marine Academy in New York. I went to the Merchant Marine Academy because we're the highest paid graduates in the world. This is in 1965. So 1965, I check in at the Merchant Marine Academy, Kings Point, New York. And my economics teacher asked me to read this book here. I'm going, this is economics? And my economics teacher was a West Point graduate, U.S. Military Academy graduate, and he flew B-17s out of England into Germany.
Ooh.
And he got shot down twice. And he had to escape and evade, and he got captured once and all this stuff. I'm talking to him. I said, why are we reading this book here? The Communist Manifesto. And so he says, because it's economics. There's a war on right now between Marxism or communism and capitalism. And our school system is run by Marxists. And when I read this book, I hate to say this, my family are Marxist. They said, I know this is England. Labor unions run the world. And my poor dad was the head of the teachers union for the state of Hawaii. And I'm reading this book here going, oh my God. And then he believes in taxes. And as you know, the rich don't pay taxes anyway. But my poor dad's telling you should pay your taxes. You should pay your taxes. I'm going, what? And so I came back in 1965. I was a changed human being. I said, I'm not going to listen to my school teachers anymore because they're Marxists. So what I'm saying is blasphemy. And then in 2020, I came up with this book here, Who Stole My Pension? And Jolly Jolly England made a twitch because your pensions almost went bust a little while ago, right? When they had to pivot the interest rate stuff.
Yeah, they got a little dicey. Well, I think you famously said that communism is the only government that kills people. And so I think a lot of people, when they first hear you talking about communism and capitalism and money, they don't see how they're related, but they're highly related. And one thing the blockchain and the crypto space taught me is if you look at those Bitcoin maxis, and I don't love all the Bitcoin maxis, but I appreciate them because they say, look, if you really want freedom of speech, you have to have freedom of your money. And if we can have the freedom of the money, we can have freedom of speech. And then I had another guy named Yatsu of Animoca Brands who is big into the metaverse. And he says, if you don't own property, even your digital assets, if you don't own those, then you have no rights, which means you have no freedom of speech, which means you have nothing. So Robert, you've been saying this for a long time. It really does come down to this, doesn't it?
It does. And I wrote this book here. My latest book is called The Capitalist Manifesto.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, I'm so disturbed of what's happening in our school systems. I'll say it again. Brian Rose is a man of transformation. We work for the same thing. You just don't take a poor person and give them money. You don't take a criminal, unless I go to politics, of course. But you know what I'm saying? We've got to start transforming. And maybe let me give you an example. Okay, I was at you had my friend Jim Rickards on, and he's one of the smartest guys I know.
Oh yeah, love him.
But this here is a U.S. quarter, and if you're going to study money, you have to know the history of money. So this is a 1964 quarter. The date's important because in 1964, President Johnson took the silver out of money. Okay. And so when you turn, so I was 17 years old in 1964. I remember looking at this quarter going, it's copper. How can they cheat us like this? And there's a law called Gresham's Law. And Gresham's Law states that when fake money comes into the system, good money goes into hiding. So I'm a kid, 17 years old. I'm looking at this quarter. This is fake money. And what I did, I used to go caddy, make a buck caddying golf clubs. I'd go to the bank and I'd pull out all the fake quarters with the copper, and I'd keep the real copper. And I stuff it in my bag. So by the time I went to school in New York in 65, I had a bag of real quarters and dimes and half dollars. When I came back from school I went away. I came back in 1965. My mother had spent my quarters. And I said, then I had this blinding transformation. This is true. Poor people don't know the difference between real money and fake money. And that's why we have the problem. So I'll tell you one more story. So I'm at Safeway at the salad bar over there. I'm kind of the salad bar guru now. See, a lot of Americans know we're in trouble. They know we're in trouble. So there's the Hispanics and blacks and whites. They say, what do we do now? What's happening? So I just happened to have this little quarter here. It says 1964. I said, this here is real money. And I held up $3 like this. I said, give me $3 and I'll give you this. And these little women just went, they love me. I love them. They're serving me my coleslaw, and my chicken salad. And they're going, well, why would we give you $3 for this? I said, because this is real and this is fake. So Brian, in many ways, I was talking to my mother, you know what I mean, years later. And they go, oh, I said, okay, give me $2 and I'll give you this quarter. And their brains were mishmash. You see, what happened is our school system has taught us to work for fake money. Go to school, get a job, work hard, save money, get out of debt, and invest in the stock market. I don't do any of that stuff. And so they sat there, they still haven't got it. They say, why would I give you this? I said, because the real price is this. This quarter, pre-64 quarter, is worth $5. And they're Brian, it was transformation. That's transformation. They could not get that this is fake.
Right.
And this is real here.
Right.
Can you get what I'm saying to you right now?
Yeah, I get it.
You get
because
it. That's what
I get
Rickards
it.
is saying too.
Yeah, I get it because that quarter represents silver that has value before
Right.
it started being fake, kind of like before the dollar was off the gold standard. And maybe I just had an observation now, Robert, is that all fiat currency systems
Are fake.
are fake, and they're based, and they only survive if a certain class of the population is uneducated, right? If the poor are stupid.
Yeah. So Brian, that's why you and I are brothers. We've got to transform people. We just can't educate them. We just can't send them to school. We can't say vote for Republicans or Democrats or Tories or liberals or conservatives. It's a matter of transformation that you've been ripped off by your government. And so after 65, when I read this book here, I was in Vietnam in 66. I'm a student on board a ship. And I saw communism at work. Brian, that was transformation. Again, I went, oh my God. I saw people killing people and all this. I'm going, oh my God. So what happened was in 69, I graduated from the Merchant Marine Academy. We're the highest paid graduates in the world. Starting pay for my classmates was $120,000 a year.
That's amazing.
So 1969, that was a lot of money. A lot of money. But I declined it because I said, I'm going to join the US Marine Corps and go fight. Because I was so disturbed by what I read about this Communist Manifesto, which is why I wrote this book here, Capitalist Manifesto. And so in 1972, I'm flying in, I was a Marine helicopter pilot on an aircraft carrier, and we're fighting, the North Vietnamese were running south on us. And that exactly as you said, Brian, this is gold. In 71, President Nixon took this out of this. And what that allows, so we had more fake money. And when you have fake money, you can print as much as you like. So what happened in 71 and 64, this is real silver. This is real silver here. They could print as much as they like, and it blew the economy into this huge bubble. So our generation, the baby boomer generation from 71 on, we've had it the easiest of any generation in history. You see that balloon hanging back there?
Yeah.
That's the balloon that the Federal Reserve Bank, the Bank of England, blows the economy in. That little gondola there is us hanging beneath this balloon. So it's been pumping all this fake money into the system. And as our friend Jim Rickards said, we've actually been in a depression since 2007. And instead of letting the thing crash, they kept pumping money and interest rates going down, interest rates going up and all this. But now the balloon is deflating. So here it is, January 2023, that balloon is coming down. So when I was listening to your interview with Jim Rickards, I was going, oh my God. And this is the lesson. He said it clearly. He says, this is a global recession. And the trouble is the balloon is coming down. And so they're trying to pump it back up again by printing and all the stuff they do, but they can't stop it. So he says, technically, we've been in a depression. It's a definition of the words, the words become flesh. So we've been in a depression since 2007. And a depression means subpar growth. So instead of growing at 3%, what Rickards is saying, we're growing at 2%. That balloon is coming down. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the reason I love this man here, Brian Rose, and I love being on this program, because we've got to transform. You just don't go to school and get a job and save money. This is trash. So that's where the transformation takes place. And so, my friend, I thank you for being my friend all these years, allowing me to say what I say, even though people don't like what I say. Like Wall Street won't, they don't let me come on Wall Street because I said, I don't touch stocks.
Yeah.
You can print it. I don't want it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want this stuff. You can print it.
I mean, you just got a lot of people's attention with what you said there. And so my question for you, Robert, is what is the one or two actions that someone should take if you just got their attention? What should they do differently now, knowing that that's trash that you were holding up, those greenbacks?
Well, action speaks louder than words. So I tell people this thing here is a pre-64 quarter. I don't know what it is in England, I'm afraid, but I would be looking for real money. So I said, go to a coin dealer and give them $5 and you buy one of these. And if that doesn't fry the brain cells between this year and this year, you're going, why am I paying $5 for a quarter? And that's where it starts, Brian. You got to start doing something different. And you say, I'm being cheated by my own government. And that's what happened for me in 65. Because I went to the academy in New York. I read this book here. I realize my parents are communists. They're good people. They believe in unions. They believe in paying taxes. They believe in all this stuff. I'm going, and they think they're rich or evil. I'm going, wait a minute. You guys are the evil ones. You're not teaching us anything. So that's where the story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad came out, back in 1997. I said, I've got to say something. So I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, because it was my rich dad, my best friend's father, who was teaching me to be a capitalist. Don't depend on anybody. So I was just talking to a friend whose daughter is going in college, and all she wants is tenure. I just want to get a job with tenure.
Oh, that's the
And
worst.
She's going to teach our kids.
I know. That's the worst. That's just the worst. And so in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, your rich dad is teaching you kind of to create capital, to create value, to create a business, right?
Yeah.
And not to wait for that paycheck, which is, again, poor people working for money, that drug addiction that most people live on, that waiting for that handout every 2 weeks or every month. And it conditions to inaction. It conditions them to, yeah, exactly, not create value. But as I remember, your rich dad is teaching you, he's forcing you. And as a kid, you're like, I just want my money. And he's like, no, you have to create the value. You have to, and you started finding these creative ways of creating these small businesses, as I remember. And is that what you encourage people to do? First, maybe own a real asset, but then to get creative of how to create a value or create a business?
To be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You and I are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Are you looking for job security, Brian?
No, it's the last thing.
No.
I haven't had a job
are.
in 12 years. Yeah. This concept of tenure sounds crazy to me. It sounds very communist. It's like, wait a second. That means I don't have to do anything and I'll have a job forever. It's like, but you need to create value every day. That's what we all need to be thinking about every day. This seems like the opposite of what we want to teach people, right?
Correct. And that's why it's not about education, it's transformation, or be very careful who your teachers are.
Yeah.
Because just before I met my rich dad, I'm 7 years old now, and I'm going to Sunday school, the Hilo Methodist Church. And these young Sunday school teachers trying to teach me something, and all I could think about is money. I was a little money kid.
Me too.
Before Rich Dad, she goes, okay, tell me this. Why were the three wise men wise? She's probably about 25 years old, I raised my hand. I said, because you were rich. And she goes, wrong answer. She says, why do you say they were rich? I said, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They were rich. She goes, that's not the answer. I said, well, why were they wise then? She says, because they sought the best teacher. Brian, that was transformational. And that's when I went in search of a rich dad.
Wow.
Interesting.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.